Hey there, IDS here, again with another ranking. This time we're talking about the Toa Nuva. The original Toa Nuva. The Toa Nuva, they are amongst the most iconic Bionicle sets. They were the first Toa as a child that I got. I got into Bionicle in 2002 through the Borok. So these were the first, I guess, hero sets that I actually got of my own volition. So they mean a lot to me. And especially considering, this was my first year getting into Bionicle. And honestly, to me, usually when I think of this Toa team in story, this is actually what I picture. Considering that, for the majority of the actual storyline, the Toa Mada were in their Nuva form. I think as well with the movie, they sort of established these as iconic looks. A lot of their voices, some of their iconography came from that movie and helped kind of cement these as the almost default form for these Toa. Of course, all-time characters, love all of them. You would have seen my Mada ranking. And instead of the Mada ranking, thinking about how cool the sets were, similar to the other rankings for other Toa teams, the Toa Nuva, this will also factor in their character representations as well. Now, again, part of the fact that the Toa Nuva were in this form for so long and entered this form so early on in the story, these are actually, in a way, kind of how I picture these characters in my head as well. So, some of the character iconography stuff almost doesn't apply to them. I know that shouldn't be the case, but it sort of is just because they were so early on. And again, I am nostalgic for these guys. I will say the Toa Nuva can be a bit contentious in the community. A lot of people just hate these guys. A lot of people don't like the Nuva masks. They say they're ugly, they're lumpy, they're this, that, and the other. I can see what they're saying. And there are definitely some I like more than others. And I think as a whole, I like the idea of the Toa Nuva versus some of the sets, if that makes sense. They haven't aged as well as the Mada sets. And there are some jankiness about their characters that things such as the game, the comics, the movie sort of smoothed it out. So it's almost like the idea of the Nuva, in a lot of cases, are better than the actual set themselves. And we'll touch on that as we go into individual characters. But yeah, it's like I love the overall aesthetic of the Nuva, and through their pictures and the way they've been depicted. But sometimes you pick one up and it doesn't quite match that feeling, if that makes sense. It's a very weird thing to say, but it's like I basically like everything about the Nuva in principle. But when you actually have one in hand, it might not actually quite reflect that, just because there is so much lore, so much visuals associated with them, so much stuff going on that it almost like fills in the gaps and their shortcomings. Of course, the Toa Nuva lasted well into the story, and kind of seeing their ups and downs is a large part of kind of what brings Bionicle. Of course, the Toa Nuva was the second Toa team we ever got as sets. Obviously, it's the same Toa team, but so a lot of things that we would kind of come to take for granted for later weren't established yet. A big thing with the Nuva that makes them a bit controversial is the sort of lack of character continuity in the mask designs. Really, the only Toa that really has a major concession for that is Tahu. Obviously, the Hau Nuva is a Hau. It's pretty evident that's based on the Hau. But the rest of their masks, not so much. And I think that probably bothered people back in the day. Bothered me a little bit as well. I used to always think and I'd always be clutching at straws and visualizing what parts of the masks transformed into what. Some of that was grasping for straws. Some of that was just, trying to find how was the Bakari Nuva the Bakari the same mask? It doesn't make sense. But they've come about through unconventional means in the story, being submerged in energized protodermis. And then we see later on that, they sort of set the precedent that design continuity wasn't really a priority for them. G2 fixed that. Hero Factory also did that a lot. And I, if I could retroactively go back, I guess I would likely incorporate far more design continuity between character iterations and mask designs. But it is what it is. I actually like the lion's share of these masks a lot. One thing that is interesting in retrospect is how big these masks are. I've mentioned in some of the other ranking videos that by the end of Bionicle's run, the masks started getting massive and a bit deformed and long. The Nuva masks aren't long, but they are very big. Even compared to the Mata masks, they are significantly larger, and especially Onuwa and Pohatu, to the point where I think Onuwa and Pohatu's masks are a little too big for these builds. But yeah, it's a bit odd because these characters aren't significantly bigger than the Mata forms. I do think the movie sort of shrank them down a bit, made them a little bit more proportional. But yeah, I don't think there's much else to say about these guys. Again, everyone knows the Nuva. They are probably the second most iconic after the Mata. Again, by virtue of being so early on and this being essentially the default Toa form. I've always found it interesting that, now these guys have adaptive armor. Well, in 2008, these guys had adaptive armor. And that Greg, or somewhere in the story, someone canonized, or it was said that these are the default forms. Like, this would be, if the Toa Nuva went to Metro Nui, they would basically form back into to these forms, just with the adaptive armor colors. Obviously, that was contradicted in the comics. The comics are limited to what the actual sets of that year are, and I don't think they have either the knowledge or the creative freedom to do a little bit anything different from that. But I like the idea that, the Toa Nuva are technically in these forms still, and the adaptive armor can return to this form when in a neutral state. Okay, enough waffling, let's get onto the list. Who is my least favorite Toa Nuva? Well, that would be Gali Nuva. Gali Nuva, I think, I mentioned that, some of these characters are almost just as iconic in these forms as their Mata forms. I don't think any of them are as iconic, but, visually I think of Pohatu, I see this Pohatu. I see Pohatu Mata. Gali, to me, is not that case. Gali Nuva. What can I say I like about Gali Nuva? I like that she has the matched limbs. That's kind of cool. Makes her unique amongst the Toa. I do prefer the way they kind of had them in the movie. In the movie, they had them kind of flipped. It's impossible to do it in the set form just because of the way the piece is bent. And I like how in the movie that the Nuva limb had the Mata limb underneath it. That was a really great creative choice. But cool. She's unique on the team to have these. They are quite slender and smooth. Because I think some of the arguments you could say is why such bulky arms for Gali, but I don't necessarily think they make her look like hefty or jacked or anything. They're actually pretty sleek pieces, so again, I can see these making her more hydrodynamic, so I don't have a problem with her having these arms. Really like her axes. Her axes are pretty nice. I think an underrated piece, actually. It's nice to get connection points on this side and then also at a right angle. We don't really see that too much on any weapons later on. I think an oft-forgotten part of her is that she gets the Mizuno rotors on the back, the little system. Well, they're used in system sets, but they're actually a Technic piece. Little rotor, those are cool. I really like her dual function. These working as flippers are great, and they look nice as axes. I think some later dual functions in G2, for example, it's like one function, great, it's an axe, but it's a glider. But how much of a glider does that really look like? Like, is that a bit of a stretch? Yeah. Here, these I think really work as flipper shapes, and seeing how this shapes around them, the Mata foot is really a really good piece design in my opinion. She has my favorite eye color of all of Bionicle. I love the yellowy orange that she had. Real shame that kind of got replaced in the Metro years, and we never really saw it again. I know Onurak, the black Visorak, has yellow eyes, but it's not the same shade. So that's a bit of a loss to me, because I love this eye color. The Nuva armor. The Nuva armor are cool pieces. It's funny in retrospect, because, Bionicle moved away from the tribal sort of aesthetic as time went on and went for a more technological. They were always robots, but almost more robotic kind of it. Like the aesthetics sort of changed. It is interesting because the Nuva armor are really smooth and metallic, and considering this was essentially the second wave, not the second wave of Toa, but like the second wave after the Mada, that we were already jumping into that sort of aesthetic. And there's not really many pistons or details on these pieces. They are basically like a set of American football gear for these Toa, and it's, again, we've always loved them. But was it really that fitting for Mata Nui, like on the island of Mata Nui, to have these? I don't know. Again, there's an element of that's the way it's always been. It was so early on. But, you know, if you tell me that these are the upgraded versions of, like, tribal warriors, it feels a little maybe out of place. I love these pieces, and I love the way it makes this team look, so I'm not shitting on them. But it's, I guess, food for thought that, do they really fit the aesthetic of the of where they're at? But, yeah, cool. And again, that's common across all the sets. I did actually like how in the movie they kind of changed the metallic tones of those. Like, Galis are like that, or like a metallic blue. Tahus are closer to like a gunmetal. They also all had, well, most of them had the stomach was colored. I think Paratu's was purely silver. And obviously Gali's entire armor was colored, but like the rest of the Toa had like a colored stomach. Interesting. I think this piece on the sets looks better just in silver, but I like how it looked in the movie. Really, what boils down to me not liking Gali is the mask. The Toa Nuva, to me, is a very ugly mask. A very, very unfeminine mask. The gaping mouth, the big nostrils, the heavy brow. She looks like a gorilla. Like, this is a great gorilla mask. And I know these pieces came in black, so I don't know why we haven't seen more gorilla masks using this mask, but yeah, it's so masculine. And it's a real shame that they kind of drifted away from the kind of the scuba visor aesthetic of the original Cao. It really made that mask stand out. And it's a really, really cool Kanohi, one of the best of the entire franchise. And to see it kind of looking like this here, I don't like it. Especially the set version. The set version is also so wide. She's got a big jaw, strong jaw, big mouth, nostril. It's just, no, doesn't work for this character. I don't actually really like it much at all. Speaking on the movie, I like what they did with it in the movie. The movie kind of takes everything about it and feminizes it. And you know what? They realize that we shouldn't put nostrils on this damn thing. Why does she have nostrils? Terrible design choice. What they did with the movie with her is great, including, you know, slimming her down. They really emphasized her female proportions. Again, giving her the dark blue metallic Nuva armor. Interesting choice. Again, I'm not sure why they did that in the movie, considering it's so stark a difference when they all have this unified silver armor, but I like it. And technically this armor set exists. You can get the dark blue chest from, I believe, a Racer's set, and the dark blue shoulders from Cracker. So you can actually achieve this look. And if you kind of want to distribute the colors, you got the dark blue feet, stick them on there from Berrick's. Give her some dark blue hands, and yeah, there you go. You got a closer to movie version of this set. Even the game, I like how they did her in the game as well. Again, it's just by slimming down the mask, emphasizing these fins, you can make this mask work. Again, it comes down to this idea that some of the Nuva, the idea of the Nuva, is better than the actual set. Because when I look at this as a Nuva design, I really like it. When I look at the movie version, I really like it. Look at the set, not for me. Easily my least favorite. It's really funny because back in those days, again, I was just getting into Bionicle. I remember me and my sister, we were looking at the catalog of sets. I can't remember if it was one of those kind of comics that used to come in the canisters, and me and my sister, I was like, I know one of these are female, but I can't remember which one. And we were looking at the pictures of the Nuva, and we were like, it can't be this one. It's definitely not this one. The one with the big fucking nostrils? Hell no. But yeah, I mean, it was. So yeah, easily my least favorite of this bunch. Which is a shame. Because, again, Gali Mata is really neat, and I think they made the little variations they could do. They made a slight effort to make her at least give the impression that she was more feminine. Okay, who is in my 5th place? Now, my 5th place, I guess similar to my Glatorian ranking, where I was like, ooh, I'm going to rank Skrull higher, but in my heart, I would like to rank Vorox higher just because of my personal bias to do with the set. I'm going to make a kind of a bold move here as well. I think I'm going to put Pohatu in 5th place. And that hurts me because you know I love Pohatu. He topped my Mada ranking list. He topped my Fantoko 2008 Toa ranking list. So putting him so low kind of hurts me. But I think it's correct. Pohatu as a set is another one where I think visually the idea of Pohatu, everything he does, I like. It's just the set looks a bit awkward. For example, this picture of him, which is probably the most iconic picture of him, I think looks freaking badass. Really love the angle, really love the pose. There's something about this that looks really cool. I guess I'll run through the positives. Really like the fact that he kept his feet additions. That was a great thing that the Nuva did. Like, this is one of those actual character continuity things they did. And we haven't changed up the feet. Why change up this weapon? The fact that it's also been coated in silver helps with the distribution. He's got silver at his extremities and at his core. I really like the Cao Nuva. As a mask, the Cao Nuva as a mask is a bit oversized. I think, again, in the pictures it works, but when you see it in person, the mask is damn huge. But I really like its design. I think Pohatu's Kakama and Kakama Nuva have different elements of speed incorporated within them. The Kakama is sleek and almost looks like a bullet, while the Kakama Nuva has like spoilers and wings to it, which is like another thing that evokes speed. They both evoke speed in different ways. And almost my clutching at straws to kind of connect the two masks are these cheeks. I'm like, if I could imagine during a transformation scene, like, you know, those filled out, and those were the parts of the cheeks of the original Kakama. Again, is it a stretch? Yes, but, you know, just clutching at straws, that's my connection here. And then actually the subsequent Kakama designs that we have also have the cheek elements to them. It's almost funny because the Fantoka Pohatu mask looks like the original Kakama, closer to, again, another stretch, but that one resembles that one, while the Mystica Pohatu matches this mask with its 4 spikes on its visor. I like his weapons. His claws are cool. I like the fact that I as much as I would love to get a boulder again, it makes sense that these weapons dual function, connect into their own little ball that can be kicked. I like that the connection pieces are his arm pins. The arm pins here also just feel like a callback to his leg pins that he had as a Mada, which is cool. And maintaining tan and brown. This, until the Vorox, this was the last set to have this color scheme, I believe. Again, you've got Huki next year, technically, but he uses the burnt orange. So it's slightly different. But yeah, it's like, love the color scheme, loved it in the original set, love it here. It's funny to see that the Nuva armor still works on the upside down body. I remember finding it fascinating and not really realizing that he had an upside down body and not being able to figure out what was going on with him in the catalog when I was really young at first, being like, what? How are his legs so wide apart? What's going on? You know, I was a kid, I was dumb. But it's cool that kind of works. One, I guess, positive that both Pohatu and Onua have is by having the hands connecting the legs in this configuration compared to their Mada versions means technically they have actual leg posability, which the Mada, well, Pohatu kind of did with his gears, but which most of the Mada and Nuva do not have. And again, it's up to you whether or not you like this visually, because it does make them look wider at the hips, but technically he's more posable than most of them. So what's my issue with this set? Again, my issue with the set, again, comes similar to Gali, is I like the idea of it more than how it actually looks in person. Like, from most poses, it kind of looks pretty goofy. These being in this configuration, I think is too wide. I know it's only like a half stud wider, but it really adds visual weight to him, and I don't really see it when people are like, oh, Toa Nuva is fat. I'm like, I don't see that at all. Toa Nuva does kind of look fat, like, because his lower body is so wide. I think putting him this way is a little too much. I think the Nuva armor being here kind of obscures the narrow taper of the Mata body, which kind of gives him this overall chunk. And actually, you know, it give or take whether or not you like this, but because this entire build makes him look like a damn boulder. He's a very compact, round boulder. And imagine this thing coming at you at high speed, like a comet. You know, actually kind of terrifying. But yeah, he ends up looking like a big ball, which, again, maybe that works for you, but I think it's a bit much. Also, with how much, with the extra armor on the shoulders, also, he doesn't have a ball on his chest. Whoever's built this has just done that. He actually has an extra ball joint on the back. Really make his arms look really stubby and hindered in their articulation. So yeah, it just doesn't look that great to me overall. Controversially, because it kind of removes what's unique about Pohatu. I love how he looks in the movie. I love movie Pohatu. Movie Pohatu is like my favorite thing in BIONICLE. It's so good. The way the actor, the characterization, the only thing they did him dirty in is he didn't use any of his elemental powers. Didn't use his mask power. He did fucking nothing except handcuffing two Rakshi together, basically, battle-wise. But the character was so good. So good. So this is such an iconic form of Pohatu to me, and I look at this and I'm like, I love Toa Nuva, I love him, until I kind of hold the set in hand and I'm like, So again, yeah, I kind of like love the idea of Toa Nuva, execution-wise, not so much. I even like how they kind of did him in the game. You know, they kind of gave him a design akin to Onua, but I feel like this gets across the idea better, and I kind of like how they've proportioned him better here. With a little bit of like longer arms. He almost has more access to his arms versus them kind of being locked in this weird position. But yeah, so as much as it really hurts me to say, I think I'm gonna have to put Pohatu in this place. Again, from visuals like this, you would think this looks great, but in reality, it doesn't quite look as cool when you don't have the perfect pose ready to go. So yeah, Pohatu, as much as it hurts me to say that my favorite character has to sit in 5th place, I think that's fair. One thing actually I forgot to mention is that the Nuva actually revolutionized the gear game. They introduced the fact that you can lock the gear function, which is simple and you can actually do it on the Mata, but they came packaged with the ability to lock the gear function. And honestly, that makes the Nuva's gear function the best they ever did. Because not only can you spin them really quickly, I'm of the opinion that the G2 friction gear functions are stupid. I understand you want to do posing, but it removes all the fun of spinning the gears when I have to actually kind of force them. If I am slowly moving the arm up with force, what is the point? I will just pose the arm up, right? The whole point of the gear function is I'm supposed to spin this quickly and they flail around really quickly. That's the fun of it. And, you know, people are like, oh, well, the friction allows you to pose them. The Nuva lets you lock the gears so you can pose them. That is the best of both worlds, is quick moving gears that are fun to spin and then you lock them. Slow moving gears that are difficult to turn or have a lot of friction so you can't move them quickly are fucking pointless, because then if it takes me 3 spins or I have to use some effort to turn the arm up, I will just lift the arm up. That's my opinion. I just think that, you know, I get the idea of adding the friction gears. Great, it doesn't hinder posing, but the Nuva all the way back in 2002 had the best version of this. And the fact that can be easily retrofitted onto the Mata mean, you know, it's like they got it right the first time. Again, why do I want to hold Gorilla G2 Onua and then turn the gear with lots of friction to move the arm up because it's locked by a ball joint? If I wanted to move it like a ball joint, I would just move his arm. Simple as that. The gear functions are supposed to be quick. I'm supposed to be able to spin them quickly and spin them around and knock people's masks off. That's the whole point of the game. Again, looking at the G2 gear function, I'm taking a massive tangent there. The masks aren't designed to fall off from the front as well, so the gear functions are just for the fun of it, which is fine. The gears are for the fun of it, but this was the best version of this. quick moving gears that can be locked for posing that actually have a purpose of knocking masks off. So the gear function kind of peaked here because the Metru forgot the fact that, you know, these gearboxes weren't connected to the ball joint. They were connected to the bionicle hand while the ball joint was not connected to the gear function. The Metru kind of forgot that, which meant that you couldn't really pose them without the gears, which was also its own problem. So yeah, the Nuva sort of, at least in canister sets, had the best gear function, at least for the arm gimmick. But yeah, tangent aside. Okay, who's in my fourth place? That's going to be Liwa. Liwa Nuva. So, what do I like about Liwa Nuva? He's cool. I guess he along with Tahu are the most generic of these guys. He just has his standard blades. Now, mind you, his katanas are amazing pieces. They're very simple and nothing crazy, but they are very versatile. And there's a reason they ended up being used in like 1 billion Bionicle sets. They're just really clean and great, and they make sense for a jungle Toa. Obviously Toa there, but lives in the jungle. You know, they are just jungle-based weapons. That's really all you can really say about him. That's unique about him. That's what don't I like about him. Similar to the idea that I like the idea of Liwa Nuva, I don't like his Miru Nuva all that much. As it is in the set. In a weird way. Not in a weird way. I don't know why Honor was here. He's just going, just squabbling over berries. I prefer the way it looks in the movie. I prefer the proportions of the movie to the set. The set looks like really rounded off and kind of like melty. You know, some of those like Nuva complaints that the sets look kind of like the masks have melted. I really feel like that, like when we see other versions of this mask, seeing these lines be sharp and defined looks better to me. Like seeing these, and to be fair, he looks more like a leaf here, which maybe that's, again, he's in the jungle, he's camouflaged in the jungle, he should look like a leaf. I prefer these being more defined, these angles being sharper. And you know what, the movie also removes this weird like forehead bump thing he has. I don't particularly like that forehead bump. I think it was a good move to remove it. So yeah, it's like the set version of this mask is the worst version of it. My favorite version of this mask is the Burger King toy, which takes it's a halfway. Now, mind you, I'm biased. I got this as a kid. I used it in all my animations. It's a really cool little knickknack to have because it's just a giant Liwa Nuva head. But the proportions of this are a mix of the set and the movie. It's got the dark green of the movie. I also think the dark green in the movie also looks nicer than here. I think the lime green and the Marder green, the contrast is nicer here to me. I don't know why. Again, maybe I'm biased because of the movie, but I just think the movie colors look better for him. There's a nicer contrast. It's a bit sharper to me. But like the movie the Burger King toy version of this mask has sharper angles than the set. These are more angular. The proportions are not quite. So I think what people might not like about the movie version is that he has this big jaw and staple mouth. This one has the set mouth, but with sharper angles. So it's not so rounded. So yeah, it's like other versions of this mask are better than the set version of this. It's like, again, the idea of the Miru Nuva doesn't bother me so much, but the set version is like one of the worst interpretations of it. Now, it's not the worst. The Bionicle, the game version of this mask, I like even less. As a big Squidward nose. He looks like a proboscis monkey. Which, I mean, Liwa is monkey, so maybe that's that's what he should be. So yeah, mask is a knock to me. I'm not a big fan of the mask. It's also very different from the Miru. It does not capture the vibe of the Miru at all. It suits his movie portrayal. I think Liwa is probably the movie portrayal that I don't dislike it in the movie, and I actually do like what they did with him. And I do prefer it because I feel like there's especially in Bionicle fan works, is to make Liwa like I'm a weird tree goblin man, and I'm a goofy guy. Not the biggest fan of that. Like, you know, Marder does that. A lot of other shows do that, and that's probably not my favorite version of Liwa. But yeah, that you can kind of see that coming from the original Miru. That's not really depicted in this Miru, so I can respect the Mask of Light for doing its own thing. And it probably suits the way this mask looks, but it doesn't really match up to the original Miru's, I guess, the attitude it gets across. The other knock on Liwa is he doesn't have a real dual function. The big thing with the Toa Nuva is they all have a dual function. Gali's Aqua Axes become flippers. Pohatu's claws become the Kodan ball. Liwa doesn't have a function. People just seem to forget that because in the animations he used to tuck his things into his armpits and just glide. It's like, how did he get away with that? They just forgot to do one for him. Obviously Matao kind of achieves what Liwa probably should have done. And it's really funny because I don't really see it brought up much, but on the Liwa Nuva canister, his supposed dual function, so all the canisters show the dual function, just show him holding both of his swords in one hand. So, I guess from a sales standpoint, his dual function is he gets to hold both of his katanas in one hand to make one giant katana. He's never done that. I don't think it's ever been depicted. So that's just a cop-out. So yeah, I guess that's a knock against him as well. He technically has one less function than the rest of them. Now, Liwa does look cool when he tucks his blades into his armpits and glides. I won't take that away from him, but he doesn't actually have a dual function. So yeah, and because I'm not a Liwa hater, but I'm not the biggest fan of Liwa. That's a lie. I really like Liwa, but like when it comes to the other Mada, he's not necessarily my favorite. Unlike what I think a lot of people like love Liwa. So that's what I mean. Right, kind of hurts to put him above Pohatu, but let's be real. He still looks cool. He's just generic and cuts a few corners, I guess. But he doesn't look as janky as Pohatu, so he gets 4th place. Okay, in 3rd place, I'm going to put Onua. If I remember correctly, he was also in 3rd place for the Mada. Onua is pretty cool. I think with Onua, I really like his chainsaw weapons. Nothing to do with his claws, really. And realistically, chainsaws should not be used underground. But, you know, it gets across the idea of, like, drilling equipment. And I've really liked those pieces. His dual function of having, like, rugged rollerblades, I guess, is kind of hilarious, but pretty cool. The way he's kind of depicted, like, going down the rock slide in his animation is pretty great. I love how those fit. I used to use those pieces for, like, treads for vehicles when I was a kid, and I'm pretty sure Alpha Team did that as well, or used some of these bionicle weapons a lot. I miss the days where System used bionicle pieces. The glory days are over. Again, like I mentioned with Pohatu, technically his legs being in this configuration means he actually has more leg posability than the other sets. And I think with Onua, the fact that his hips aren't already double wide like Pohatu, it's not so bad here. It does make him shorter than his previous form, I think. No, maybe not, because his head is technically a stud up. I really like the Picari Nuva. The Picari is the superior mask and is far more versatile and is one of the best masks ever. But I really like the Picari Nuva as well. I feel like it looks really rugged and earthy. I love all the protrusions. Both him and Pohatu, I like how you can kind of see where the chin that they kind of used in the movie came from. Like, it's really understood that this is the mouth area. I really like it. Now, I think a lot of people complain that he has little stubby arms. And I get it. And I think when Lego designs sets, at least in this era, I think they incorporate that the weapon length is part of the arm length, which is why he's got really long weapons and they gave him little short arms. I have no evidence for that, but I just feel like that was the case. I also think they wanted to get across the idea that he was strong. At this point in Bionicle's, I guess, design language, they didn't really have that many thick pieces. Like, if you look at most of the Mada limbs from one angle, it's almost like they're two-dimensional. They're thin from the front, while the Borok limb and the Nuva limbs were wide for the first time. So I think they wanted to give him wider arms without giving him these as his lower arms. And I've mocked with him before and tried to give him the other limbs. Yeah, I don't mind this look, and I think it adds to the hunched over American football player sort of look. Like, he really looks stout, and like you see those like bodybuilders which have like limited arm mobility. It's almost giving that vibe. So yeah, I think with the part library at the time, I can kind of understand the choice. It is a bit strange, but yeah. He also technically, because of the way his head is attached, it's attached to the Nuva torso. He also technically has some side-to-side head mobility, similar to the 2004 matoran. So again, Onua is the most posable Toa Nuva. He has the best leg articulation and the best head articulation. So he's got that going for him. Great dual function, the most posable. His biggest flaws are, again, him and Pohatu share the giant mask. I think his mask should have been brought down 0.5%. It doesn't really need to be as big as it is. It's a bit oversized for his set. And also the way it connects compared to the Marder form means it's way out over here. Like, the Marder head version of him, it was like here. This is a little bit crazy all the way out there. I don't mind it. And I would take something like this, again, over kind of boring Toa Nuva. But it is a bit crazy. I've done a mod on my channel, if you want to look it up, of making a sort of a mod to Onua to give him a posable neck that isn't so crazy like this. So yeah, I recommend checking it out. But yeah, I think this is his biggest flaw. The fact that his head sits all the way out here. Which is a bit weird from some angles. I can live with it, and I honestly think it would be less jarring if the mask wasn't also so huge. But yeah, no, but still, I like this set a lot. Onua's funky, and love his character. I think again the mask is quite well emphasized for the way they depicted his character in the movie as well. I feel like that's an iconic portrayal of him. The way both him and Onua portrayed together in the movie again is one of my favorite things. I just love it. So maybe there's some bias with Onua. But hey, look, I should be biased for Pohatu, and I still stuck him near the bottom of the list. So that's my olive branch to those who are saying that I am just picking favorites for the fun of it. So yeah, that's where Onua sits in number 3. Seems like he keeps his spot that he had in the Marder ranking, if I remember correctly. So who is my number 2? My number 2 is going to be Kopaka. Kopaka is just another, I guess, neat looking set. I feel like I'm going to just start saying the same things that I said as I did in the Fantoka. That's not Kopaka. Did I have another picture of Kopaka? I feel like I'm going to say a lot of the same things I said in the Fantoka list, but he just looks cool and neat. I love the fact they kept his shield. Love that. Again, the character continuity of it is great. Again, shield-wielding character, you know, they get engulfed in an energized protodermis. What happens? The shield gets bigger and all the gaps get filled. It makes sense. Now, it is a little bit boring that it is just a round shield with no pattern. I think even the movie designers recognized that and gave it a bit of... There was like a 2 notches on the side here, but actually, I don't know. It has like a Captain America sort of vibe. So I keep doing self-promo here. Check out my channel. It's a very short animation I did of Kopaka fighting with just his shield. I do like to imagine he would have an almost Captain America style fighting style, just because of the similar round shield. He just looks neat. I feel like I have nothing really much to say. I like the skate weapons. They do look very much more like skates than they do blades, but you know what, it sort of works. It's a unique weapon, and to be honest, I don't know if you've ever seen those ice skates. Those are brutal, and he really kind of embodies that extreme sports look. Just this is such an iconic picture of Kopaka that really gets over that this is a really 2000s set. His mask is pretty cool. It's definitely a departure from the Akaku. Like, I think with Kopaka, because his defining mask trait is the scope, similar to the Fantoka, even if it's on the wrong side, because he has a scope, it looks like Kopaka. It's just the way it is. And I think this is another mask that is made a little better in the movie, but I like it in the set. I think the biggest problem I have with this mask is it's clearly a Hau. Like, I'd argue, obviously the Hau Nuva is a Hau, but This is even more Howl-like, from the shape of the head to the roundness of the mouth to even the eye shape. This looks like if you put a scope on a Howl, this is what it would look like. And in fact, I've done mocks in the past where this is depicting a scoped Howl. But the biggest problem with this mask actually is the scope. I think the filled-in scope looks a bit worse here than it did on the Martyr mask. I think the Martyr mask making them smaller and it being a little bit more... They might have a bit more cut and dry lines. They're less, again, that sort of quote-unquote melty texture isn't there. So I think they feel a little bit more technological. Meanwhile, here it's a little bit softened, so it feels a bit weird that this is filled in. That's definitely something that I can give the 2016 mask having a stud connection, and even the 2008 mask having a connection to put a piece in there is a good idea. Because definitely here it looks a bit strange. It looks almost like caked on snow. And that's what it's kind of the texture of his mask almost looks like. It's not quite smooth, it's a bit bumpy. It really does feel like someone's made a snowball, which is kind of cool. But I can understand why people might not like that. Yeah, I think everything else beyond that is just similar to the Martyr set. It's all the grey and white color scheme lends really nicely to the silver. It doesn't even add like a contrast. It almost feels more cohesive here. And it just gives him a super slick look. My biggest problem with the set overall, I would say, is actually him using this Martyr limb for his shield. He didn't actually use that as a Martyr. It just hinders the posability of this. So whenever I actually have him displayed or built, I actually give him a matching arm. Just because A, the movie had it, and B, yeah, it does limit the way this can pose. But it doesn't limit the posing to a degree where it's super annoying. But yeah, that's it. I actually, also another thing as well, obviously the Martyr set had a white hand, so people might be like, oh, why does he have a black hand now? I like it. It adds balance. I think it almost looks like he's wearing a glove as well. I actually, whenever I when I build him with symmetrical hands, I tend to keep the black hands. I think it adds a nice balance, considering how the silver and the white and the grey almost keep him very clean. The black acts as a nice grounding colour. But yes, that is my thought. Those are my thoughts on Kopaka. And my number one is the poster child of the wave, Toa Nuva. Toa Nuva. Like, maybe people are going to, oh, come on, you went with Tahu, what the hell, you're just picking the main guy. I haven't picked Tahu as my best out of any of them, really. And I think in terms of Toa Fire, no, Vakama was my number one in my Metru, but, I'm not just one of those guys who's the glory supporter who goes for the face of the wave, right? Again, my bias is towards the stone sets, if anything. But yeah, Toa Nuva. He's basically the same as Liwa Nuva, just with the swapped arms and different weapons, but he's just cool. He's just cool. That's it. I'm sorry, you can't look at a picture like this and be like, this isn't the most radical thing you've ever seen in your life. The guy's got firstly, the idea of lava surfing is just badass. That's just such a bionicle staple. And it's not just Tahu. Obviously, you've got Lee Khan with the board. In 2006, all the Toa and Naika have those little lava boards in the playsets as well. Like, surfing on lava is just a cool-ass thing that happens at Bionicle. And it was that radical at the time that, Tahu was always depicted, surfing on a rock. He has his own board now. How freaking sick is that? The magma swords are such a cool piece. And I would say it's criminal they never reappeared, but I don't know. I almost like the fact that they almost feel niche. And from the shaping and everything, they really feel like the Liwa swords on steroids. You can almost kind of see the katana in there, and it's almost like if you fused Liwa Nuva's katana and Tahu Mada's flame sword into one piece. I do like how the movie had the flame element in dark red, molded in. That was cool. The Howl Nuva is a really great mask. I really like it a lot. It absolutely captures the Howl in a way that, again, it felt like Tahu was the only one they really focused on making sure that both of his forms look like the same version. I think it really well represents his character. I look at this and I see Tahu. I can see his attitude. I can see the way he's depicted. It just works. The red and orange color scheme with the black grounding and the silver just is very clean. It isn't distracting. It isn't weird. It just there's a nice harmony to this set that just feels like I can just taste 2002 looking at this guy. It just feels good to see him. And actually, no bias at all, really. I think he was actually my first Toa set, but again, I actually have my first Bionicle feelings more towards actually the Borok and the Borok Var. Again, my first set was a Garlock, and the first set I went out and actually bought of my own volition with my parents, because I got those as gifts, was Parak Var and Garlock Var. So all my early bias things almost fall to those sets. So I don't feel encumbered by like some strong feelings towards Tahu, really. Again, he's not my favorite Marder. So yeah, I think I don't really have too much to say about him because he's very simple. The board was kind of an ingenious inclusion given how he was depicted as a Marder. I think the way they do it just by connecting to the sides of the feet, really simple solution, but I think achieves what they needed very well. And I think it's easy for your brain to just imagine. If you've got like the smallest sense of imagination, you know that it would be filled out at the bottom. So yeah, real simple way to achieve that. He just looks cool. Yeah, that's it. It's maybe it's a very boring first place, but I think of all the sets, I don't have any negatives for him. I don't have a single negative for Toa Nuva, while the rest of them have at least one. Kopaka's shield arm is a bit weird, is a bit restrictive. Onuwa's neck is a little bit too far, the oversized mask. Liwa, I'm not the biggest fan of his mask, doesn't have a dual function. Pohatu overall looks a bit janky. Oversized mask. Ghali's big gorilla face. So yeah, Tahu comes out on top. And it feels like a cop-out answer because there's a lot of unique things going on with the rest of them, and then what I've picked the most generic one. But you know what? Sometimes the one they show you is the best one for a reason. So yeah, that's my ranking. Tahu sits at number 1. Again, these are beloved characters. It would be great to know your opinions in the comments. And yeah, let me know who I should rank next and what you'd like to see from me. Animation's on the way. I'm going to keep saying it. Right now, I think I've decided on it. It will be out in December versus me saying coming soon. So in December, it will come out. Gonna do another short to be like paired alongside with it. So yeah, that's it. The Toa Nuva ranked, and I will catch you on the next one. Goodbye.